Hi, this is voice coach Jessica Neighbor, and today we are going to take on speaking anxiety. And I want to show you 4 tools that have worked for my clients and for myself over my 20 years of being a voice coach that really are going to help you increase your confidence and decrease your public speaking anxiety. And we know in the industry that public speaking anxiety is a big deal. 7 out of 10 people experience it at different levels. So you're not alone, and there are absolute tried and true strategies that I have seen work time and time again for my clients. So we're going to get into it. I want to ask you just a couple of questions first. When you think of public speaking, what kind of reaction does your body immediately have? Do you tense up? Do you start to feel nervous? Are you a slightly more experienced person that gives presentations and talks, but still feels like you're avoiding doing certain things, or you are putting in more effort and work and stress than you want to? Are you someone who, once you start speaking, really feels your physiological reaction with a heart rate or a tightening or a sweat? Or do you feel your mind racing when you're speaking? Do you just want to get through it as fast as possible and get over with it? And after you've given a speech or a presentation, do you sit there picking yourself apart and focusing on the negative things rather than some of the successes that you could have had? If you said yes to any of these things, then we can help you decrease some of this anxiety and increase some of your confidence, because those two are very, very connected. I do want to say that these strategies help specifically with mild to medium glossophobia, which is the fear of public speaking. If you have extreme glossophobia, then please use these 4 tools as part of your complete treatment plan, because you should not have to suffer from extreme glossophobia. There are great treatments out there for you. All right, let's dive into it. So the first thing I want you to do is really practice staying grounded and in your body leading up to your presentation. Because the number one kind of anxiety that can really impact us is anticipatory anxiety, which means when we're thinking and overthinking about an event in the future. And oftentimes, because we're so creative, when we're thinking and overthinking it about an event that's happening in the future and it hasn't actually happened yet, we love to fill in the gaps about what might actually happen. And because our body senses that we're nervous, then that can set off a whole trigger of events in our body that tell us that we are in danger, that we're in fight, flight, or freeze response. And that will then lead to this anticipating of our speaking event as something to fear, something that is dangerous, something that we want to avoid preparing for, and something that we want to rush through and just be done with. If we can reframe leading up to our presentation as something that is more like game day, showtime, take a play from the playbook of famous athletes and performers out there, and even politicians who think about how to pump themselves up with the good feelings, right? And the good attitude going into their speech, rather than getting stuck in that negative spiral. So here's a couple of exercises that you can try doing. One is just a really wonderful centering breath exercise. If you feel yourself spiraling out, you can do this any point leading up to your talk. You can breathe in for 4 slow counts, hold for 4 slow counts, and then exhale. Do this for a few cycles, and if it feels good, you can even extend your breath cycles to 5 counts or 6 counts. And by slowing your breath down, you are going to help your nervous system to calm down and take you out of that fight or flight response that we get triggered about when we think about public speaking, which again is why 7 out of 10 people fear it. Another wonderful thing is to get into your body, center it, do some stretches, do some shaking out, even a little dance before you go on is going to let your body relax so that it's not tightening up and sending signals to your brain that something's wrong. Something I love that my speakers can do, even if they're sitting down, is to do a tight and release, right? So tension, release. Go ahead and try it with me right now with your hands. You're gonna tense them up and then you're gonna release them. And then you can do the same thing with your shoulders, tightening them up and then release them. And you can isolate your different body parts. And that way we're also mapping what does my body feel like when it feels relaxed so that we can make that our default when it is time for us to go and talk. If we are walking around backstage or before we click on our Zoom talk and we are tight, when we go to start, we are gonna be in that kind of physical state, right? Which again, is just gonna tell our mind all kinds of funky stuff that we don't need it to. So by doing a body mapping and relaxing ourselves, we're gonna feel so much better for it. If you want to go pro with me, one thing I have my private clients do that I also have a whole activity about in my book, Love Your Voice, a public speaking workbook for women, is the best case, worst case scenario writing exercise. This is where if you feel yourself just spiraling out, write it down on paper. You can write down what your worst case scenario is and just put in everything. You know, I'm gonna fall off the stage. I'm gonna freeze and forget what I have to say. I'm gonna sweat profusely. Whatever it is that you feel like is gonna happen, just put it all out there on the paper. And then take a moment to look and think, okay, how do I reverse engineer this so these things don't happen, right? As much as is in my control. And then challenge yourself to write out a positive scenario. What could go right? How are you gonna feel? How are you gonna connect with your audience? What is that gonna take? And really treat yourself like an athlete, right? It's gonna come down to a lot of the basics, getting enough sleep, eating right, being in the right mindset. And so by doing this best case, worst case scenario, we're kind of containing it on paper, and then we're able to step back and step out of the anxiety spiral and then reverse engineer what it is we need to do in order to achieve success. Tool number two is to own your experience and expertise. You have a reason why you're talking, whether it's in the boardroom, whether it's negotiating your pay, whether it's pitching, whether it is giving a formal presentation. You want to be behind yourself, because if you're not behind yourself, it's going to be hard for anyone else to be behind you. There is something that a lot of women in particular struggle with, which is called imposter syndrome, which is when we feel like we are not qualified, regardless of our achievements and our skill and our level. And unfortunately, studies have shown time and time again that women, even the most accomplished CEOs and politicians and public people out there who we know, can suffer from imposter syndrome. And I think a lot of this comes back to this feeling from women that we are never good enough, that we always have to be striving and doing more. And you'll hear a lot of people from other marginalized communities talk about this same feeling they have. So you can imagine if you are a woman and a woman of color or a woman from, the trans community, your imposter syndrome is going to grow larger the further you are away from the sort of assumed regular center of power. What we need to do is to reclaim our power, regardless of who we are, own our expertise, own our experience, and remind ourselves that it is just as valid and just as important as any other person's life experience. So one thing that can help you to think about yourself as an expert is to do a fun mind exercise where I want to ask you to close your eyes really quickly and envision what a powerful speaker looks like to you. And just think about who and what pops into your mind. And then close your eyes again and imagine yourself as an expert public speaker and see if that's easy for you to imagine. And the more we can practice envisioning that, the more we're going to convince ourselves that it is possible. We need to see it to believe it. So projecting that for ourselves is going to reassure ourselves that we have every right to be in this room just like everybody else. And I know this isn't easy for everyone, but this is such a wonderful way for us to really empower ourselves and kick imposter syndrome to the curb, because it's not serving us at all. What is serving us is our experience and our expertise. And that's what we want to be communicating with our listeners, not our shortcomings and our insecurities. Tool number 3 is one of my personal favorite tools. And this is to focus on connection rather than perfection. Perfection keeps us in our head. Perfection keeps us more self-involved because we are on our case about getting every single thing right. If we are focused more on connecting, if we are focused more on who it is I'm talking to, who I am communicating with, then we are going to make such a better impression. Let me give you an example. I was leading a public speaking workshop for a really big corporation. It was an international workshop, and I was really wanting to make a strong impression. Well, I had all my notes. I had prepared everything I needed to do. I was giving my own coaching just like I would one of my private clients. And right when the talk started, my slide deck took a nosedive. It recovered and we got it working, but for a minute or two there, it was pretty awkward. Well, the perfectionist part of me could have just flipped out, gotten mad or angry or uptight or overly apologetic. And instead, I handled it with grace and humanity and made a joke about how technology is our friend until it isn't, and that this is realness that happens to even public speaking experts. And it was such a great icebreaker that I didn't intentionally plan, because all of a sudden my audience could relate to me. It was like, oh, here's the expert showing up about public speaking and her slide deck isn't working. And isn't that just kind of the way? We want to connect to real humans, not the perfect humans. I would actually rather know what your struggles are, what makes you unique, rather than thinking that you're this untouchable, perfect being. So just like in all parts of our life, when you go to present, when you go to communicate, it's okay if you have some hiccups. It's okay if you fumble once in a while. The goal is never to be perfect. The goal is to be perfectly you. What I love challenging my clients to do is to just catch yourself when you get into that perfectionist mindset and challenge that notion that you're going to figure out as you go along, that done is better than perfect, and that you don't have to necessarily be overqualified before you ask for that promotion, before you go out for that job, before you go and create that new offering that you want. And we see a trap oftentimes with women that in general, they have to feel overqualified and sometimes prove that to the hiring committee in order for them to be seen. So it is something that is deeply ingrained in our society and our culture. It's no fault of your own, but it can be so uplifting when you can just allow yourself to be your natural, imperfect, beautiful self. All right? And I will say one last thing about this one, because this one is probably one of my biggest challenges. I definitely am a recovering people pleaser, perfectionist, is we want to see someone on the stage who we feel like we could sit down and have coffee or a beer with. right? We don't want to see someone on a stage who feels like a god and who feels untouchable. So the more honestly down to earth you can be when you are giving a presentation and all eyes on you, the more communal you're coming off, the better you're going to feel and the better your audience is going to feel. So it's just another great reminder that we just want to be ourselves at the end of the day. And finally, the last tool I want you to think about using, number 4, is to speak with your most authentic and natural vocal tone. A lot of women who I work with will often pitch their voices down lower. And unfortunately, again, research shows us that lower voices tend to be viewed as more confident and more experienced. So it's no surprise that a lot of people will pitch their voices down. However, if you find that you're pitching it down so low that you're winding up in your vocal basement and that you're getting into vocal fry zone, that is going to be problematic. It's going to wear your voice out and it's not going to really feel like the genuine you is communicating. A really extreme example of that is Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos. If you check out video of her, you'll hear just how much she manipulated her voice down low when she was trying to get some of that silicone money. And it worked for a while until it didn't. Check out her full story. It's fascinating. Her book, the documentaries about it are all fascinating, but she instinctively was doing something to appeal to a powerful group. However, it is my belief that the more variety of vocal tones and timbre and pitches that we can accept as being powerful, the more inclusive our world will become. The less we'll hear people accusing women of sounding shrill, right? Or sounding hysterical, which you never hear men being accused of sounding like, right? These are oftentimes saved for women who might just naturally have a higher vocal tone. So an exercise you can do to figure out, well, geez, I don't know what my vocal tone is and I don't know if I'm using my natural one, is to go ahead and hum Happy Birthday and just instinctively start humming it. And notice then, start holding that tone. And then I'm going to open up and I'm going to start singing on that tone. And then I'm going to change it to a speaking tone. And I'm going to notice if I am in what feels like my most natural tone. If you go to sing Happy Birthday and it is a lot higher or it's a lot different than what your speaking tone is, that might be a clue that you're not in your natural vocal tone. If you're just sitting your head scratching it and going, sitting here scratching your head going, I don't know what she's talking about, you can go ahead and take advantage of a coaching offering I have, which is where you get speaking feedback from me. So what we do together is you get a sample speech from me, you record yourself reading it, I analyze it for you, and then we hop on a 25-minute Zoom call together and I give you my honest expertise feedback to let you know what your voice is communicating, what your body language is communicating, to bring some awareness to you about how it is you are coming across. Because sometimes it doesn't match what you think. So that's just a $27 offering that you can take advantage of from me right now. And I'll share the links for you here. Also, you can get a free offering from me, which is to join my public speaking community for women called Love Your Voice. And we practice weekly different skills to start feeling more confident, to start feeling less anxious, and to build up our communication skills together. So Love Your Voice is at www.loveyourvoice.me. And if you are a professional woman who just wants to feel even stronger when she communicates, then please join us. So I hope this has been helpful. Let's go ahead now and do a rapid fire review of the 4 tools that you can be using to decrease your anxiety and increase your speaking confidence. Let's go for it. You are going to stay grounded with breath, mindset and physical exercises before your speech. You are going to own your unique experience and expertise because there is nobody else on earth like you. You are going to connect authentically, let go of perfectionism, and focus more on connection. And finally, you are going to speak with your authentic and natural vocal tone. And if you don't know what that is, you can get my expert speaking feedback to help you on your way. Thank you so much. I wish you the best. Until next time, I hope you can stay calm and speak on.